Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! Today on the podcast, I was very lucky to have Anthony Jeannot on. He is a stand-up comedian. Also, he is a podcast host of the how can I say it? Highbrow Drivel. We spoke about a number of things. The difference between the comic scene here in the UK and compared to over in Australia. What was some of his main influences in comedy? And yes, how can I put it? His adventures with a doomsday prepper. One of the funny stories he told. Got to say, very happy to have him on, joy to have. And yeah, please sit back, enjoy the podcast. And yeah, don't forget, please subscribe. Have a great day and enjoy the show. Yeah, peace. Hello, my friends. Hello, my life warriors, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Day In, Day Out podcast. Woo! This is episode 122. And yes, today I'm very happy, pleasured. Pleasured? That's not right. I'm very happy to have Anthony Jeannot. Podcast.
There's social distancing in play, man. We can't be pleasuring everybody right now.
Yes, as you can tell, with his razor sharp wit, he is a stand-up comedian and he is also a podcast host. He is the host of the Highbrow Drivel. Yes. How are you today, sir?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I think every week it's weird, right? Because you can't do anything on the weekends, but still that feeling of coming into Friday, just being like, I don't have to check my email. I don't owe anybody anything. It's still a good feeling.
That's like I have freedom coming up on my horizon. Freedom.
Yeah. And it's such a small amount of freedom. It's not like I get to go out and do. No, it's just like I don't have to deal with your shit.
Put this way, like at this moment in time, my lady is experiencing all the freedom in the world because she's next door watching Bridgerton. I don't know if you've seen anything of that, but no, she is, how can I say, she loves a good period drama. And after hours of slating this TV show, she's now watching the first episode. And I think she is in hardcore. It's like, can I turn something else on? No.
My wife, when I was in Barbados earlier this year, my wife took the opportunity to watch it while I wasn't around. She's like, I know you're not into it. I'll get it done while you're out the country.
It's like, don't you worry. Hey, can I get you anything? Room service is here. I'm okay. Just don't disturb me. We can go out, baby. We can go out into the sun. No. No. I have to ask, you're a stand-up comedian. How long have you been doing stand-up for?
It's a really good question. I would say I did my first gig sort of 10 years ago. And then I did something that a lot of comics do, which you should never do. If you ever want to start comedy, if you start comedy, don't do this thing, which is I quit because I think when you first start out, right, you get told a lot of stuff about how to be funny, right? And it's like anything in life that there is a way that most people do it, and that's cool.
Yeah.
But if you try and do it like most people, at some point you're gonna get bored with it, or and so instead of going, oh, okay, maybe I'll try and do this other thing that I think's interesting, I quit for a bit, took a couple of years, and then not doing it was actually quite good though, because it meant that when I come back, I was like, well, you know that you can't do it that way, so you're here, just do what you want and see if you can make people laugh that way rather than the way people tell you to do it,
Yeah, this is the thing. One of the things I get from a lot of people with stand-up is kind of like being when you watch the Olympics, like you watch an event where you can judge and points like this. Before you know it, you're 10 minutes in and you're kind of an armchair judge. And I think people do that a lot with comedy because it's like, wait, you go, okay, all you're doing is just telling a funny story. And most people can say they've told a story at one point, which is like basically slayed. But you know what I mean? It's a lot more than that.
Dude, and you can 100%. It's a weird thing about comedy going onto stage saying it to strangers, right? Because you can 100% pick the person who is the funniest person in their friendship group when they do their first gig, because they've got all that bravado, you know. Why wouldn't they be funny? Everybody's always thinks they're funny, and they get it up and they're like, yeah, anyway, so I was at the bar with my mate James and he said I want a beer and I said, don't you want a scotch? And you can see the life drain out of their faces. They realize like, oh, nobody gets none of this shit because nobody knows any of the people involved.
Yeah, no, building that, like, what is the context and how the hell does that relate to me? It's like,
yeah. It's like being a salesperson to some extent, right? Like you have to make the audience think it's about them, even though you're the one with the lights and the mic and they're all being shut up, right? It's not about them, but you need them to think it is.
Yeah, no, like this is the thing. Yeah, absolutely. And like the whole thing, I would say, like, as a person who's not in the realm of comedy or anything like this, but something which has definitely changed my sort of outlook on comedy, because like every time I see a major comedian or anything like this, they've gone through like you're 10 years in it, and like, you know what I mean, you've built your time, put your reps in, and like I see that finished product. But it's a case of you don't actually think, okay, this like comedians come up with like this whole new like hour special, and now like that was this year, 2 years before they did another special, and before then, and you don't actually sort of get the reps or the work behind it, but you kind of seen it a little bit more now today when you get more comedians talking about this.
Yeah, dude, because like half the skill is thinking of something that is funny, and that is really hard. Like that is trial and error. That is it. You just go, will you laugh at this? All right, fuck it, I'll try again. Will you laugh at this? All right, I'll try again, right? That's half of it. The other half is making it look like you've never said it before. You know what I mean? Because if you read a joke in a joke book, right, it's in that context of like it's sterile, it's a bit, whereas if I can deliver it to you like, oh, this is all just going through my head, and where is it, and then bang, oh my God, there's the funny bit. It's that surprise that kind of gets you, you know. So half of it is just making it sound and feel like, oh, this is just for you guys. And that's why improv on stage does so well, right? And it's something that a lot of comics do to make the gig fun for themselves, is like, you know, before I tell any of my jokes, I'll mention something in the room to kind of get me in, because that keeps it interesting and fun for you. Yeah. And some of those jokes are weak as, but the audience eat it up because they're like, he did it just for us, you know? It's so weird.
It's like, we're in with you, man. Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah, that coat check out. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Oh my God, she is so freak. Yeah, it's like, yeah. Anyone else like, yeah. What if you watch that on YouTube or anything? People are going, what?
Yeah. Do you know what I reckon happens at a lot of gigs, right? Somebody in the group of friends will go, hey, the bartender looks a bit like Daria. And everyone in their friendship group goes, oh, shut up, idiot. She doesn't, or whatever. And then the comic gets on stage and goes, did anyone buy a drink from Daria? And then old mate's friends are like, she does look like Daria. And he's there going, that was my joke.
Just see someone in the audience just look at you, steely eyed, just like, I'm gonna get you.
No, you just see them looking at their friends like, really? You're gonna do me like that?
Got to say it. Yeah, no, I hear you. Now, so what, like, you're married, you mentioned you're married. Like, was it the love of a good woman which brought you over here to the UK, or was it some other thing?
Uh, it was some other thing. So she kept me here,
Uh-huh.
although she's Australian too. But she was just she had plans on staying here longer, and I had no plans on leaving. So here like I had plans of leaving the country until she was like, "We're not leaving." I was like, "Yep, we're not leaving." um, but originally, I think it was I turned 30, and
Mm.
I was Australia is beautiful, man, but it is everything is smaller. And so like I was kind of getting to the top, like at 30, I was at the point where like the next career jump I could make was going to take me ages. I'd got to a point where back home I'd reached a bit of a ceiling for a bit, and there was more I could do, but
Mm.
I just knew that wasn't it was going to take a long time. Comedically, again, I'd got to the point where like I was, doing pro gigs, but I wasn't a TV act. But the jump between those two again is kind of a huge step to make. And so it was like, do you know what? I can do a lot of hard work, hoping that those incremental gains make a big difference in sort of 10 years. I
Yeah.
can go somewhere and kind of just where the ceiling is a bit higher and you've got more room to grow. So I think I just kind of outgrew it a bit.
Right, I see. Like with that sort of growth and like basically comedy in Australia and comedy over here, like would you say it's like, yeah, one small leap or one giant leap for yourself in that sort of way comedy is? Because look, trying to get into the lexicon of the UK thinking compared to the Australian thinking is you have to maybe you have to strip everything away and start again.
No, I found 99% of my jokes translated when I moved over. It was a pretty smooth transition. I think Australia has kind of stolen its sense of humor wholesale from America and the UK, right? And
Mm.
so there are some acts that you go, if you want to move overseas, you should go to the US, and others you go, if you want to move overseas, you should move to the UK. So I wasn't anywhere near the middle. I was one that people were like, man, if you go to the US, they're gonna hate you, right? So I was just like, it's just, I'm not bombastic. I don't do voices. There's no act outs. You know what I mean? It's quite a different sensibility. So I came here. In terms of the mindset, though, there are two things that jumped out at me instantly when I got here. One is, like I said, Australia is a much smaller pond.
Yeah.
And so it's a lot easier to become the big fish in the small pond, right? Like if you slay a gig back home, you can very quickly build the right relationships with the right people to get the right gigs
Yeah.
to a point. Whereas over here, like, doesn't matter how funny you are, you're fighting for yourself day after day after day. It's just it's too big a scene. There's too many good comics for anybody to really want to give you a leg up. Which doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that I can't get the same gigs or that the jokes don't translate. It just means that you can't get lazy. You always have to be hustling because everybody else is, which is good. It's good for growth. The other thing is, I think the audiences here are a lot less patient. Over in Australia, our comedy scene has kind of started at festivals
Yes.
and then moved into comedy clubs, whereas here it's the opposite. It's comedy clubs and then people go to Edinburgh later in their career. And so audiences back home are used to a comic telling a story and kind of just, we're a bit laid back. You have a bit of a yarn and eventually the joke will come and it'll be good, but it's coming, whereas over here, joke, joke, joke. You haven't given me a joke, you're boring. Joke, joke, joke. And you have to kind of learn to get that rhythm.
Yeah, like sharp delivery all the time and basically just having you like honing your craft, but no, just have it just right on point. Like yeah, that must be how can I say it must be like fresh for you as you mentioned, but like this is the thing, like when like would you say there's sort of like a support support group of comics you would say you can sort of like go, yeah, you know what, let's band the brothers this and like let's see what we can do?
Yes and no, right? So it's self-driven. Like you need to make those friends, and as much as it's everybody for themselves, you're not going to survive if you're not kind of building a support group to get better. Because sometimes you stare at your material so long that it all becomes blurry, and all you need is one person to go, that one word there, that's what's confusing them. You get rid of them, bang, joke hits, right? So you need to make those groups, but there's not like a formalized way to do it. It's just, it's on you to make them. I will say though, like if you're real fresh, Angel Comedy runs like writing gyms and stuff like that. And I think that team and what they've built out there at the Bill Murray in Angel is, I don't know if there's anywhere in the world that does more for like grassroots comedy than them. They have their writing gyms, they run the pro nights kind of every week. They run, but for a comedy club, like usually big kind of pro comedy clubs that get the big pro acts.
Yeah.
Most of their revenue is food and drink, right? It's a bit of a bait and switch. Like you're buying a ticket for comedy, but really where they're making their money is selling food and drinks.
Yes.
Terrible food, completely overpriced, to nuts, and you're laughing enough that you forgive it, right?
It's like, wait, I think these chicken wings are out of date. Don't worry, the comedy's fresh.
Yeah. You're to the point that you're watching something on stage, so you're not actually looking at how stale the stuff looks on your plate, But so because they don't operate in that way, because they are primarily their main revenue stream is the comedy, they treat it with a lot more care and respect than venues of their size. It's a really cool place.
I like that. Like it's one of those things where people talk about getting into new things, like with regards to the realms of comedy. Like I'd say, as many a person like thinks they're funny, but when it comes to getting out there, doing it themselves, it's that much harder. But having a roadmap or knowing where to go, that is like half the battle, maybe more so, to help you refine those skills. What I think right now, anyone who wants to start comedy now, or basically in 2020, now it must be incredibly hard, because one of the things I would simply say with comedy, like I've heard it in other places, you need to be in front of a crowd to get that refinement, as you say, to get your reps in. And without refining all your reps, you're kind of blind, or you don't know which way you're going.
Yeah, man. I think it's a rough time to want to start comedy for exactly what you're saying, right? Because there are virtual gigs, but the thing about virtual gigs is 90% of them, they mute the audience, right? Because otherwise you have some dickhead derail the whole show. So it's literally performing blindfolded, because you can't really see 90% of the audience, because on Zoom, it pans out and then you can't hear any of them. In fact, it's a ridiculous story, right? At Edinburgh Fringe, they used to do a thing called, I can't remember what the name of it was, but the whole premise was that the performer went out with a blindfold and earmuffs, so they couldn't get any audience interaction. It's pros doing it, right? It's not, they weren't sending newbies out as a sense of torture, right?
It's like they offered them a cigarette before they went out into the firing line.
Yeah. I think they at least bought them a drink before they fucked them, 100%. But the thing is, I had friends who were professional comics who did that show and come off stage and cried, because some of comedy is real personal, right? And the way that you get over sharing something like that is that you've put the joke in and you get the laugh back, and your brain gives you all the good chemicals, and it's that two-way relationship. You say that shit and nothing comes back. It's traumatic, right? And so like I said, that made pros cry. And if you were trying to start comedy today on Zoom,
Mm.
that's all you've got.
Yeah, no, like, oh God, no. No, no, like this,
Yeah.
like, because like the whole thing is, you mentioned like Zoom, like comedic shows and like them muting it, and like, look, me personally, I'm just like going, yeah, you need that crowd feedback, as you mentioned, the sort of give and take. Basically, like I would say, and I'm saying this also, I have to say, as an outsider, like the sort of you're getting that ebb and flow, you're kind of playing that sort of jazz with the crowd.
Yeah.
When you're really riffing, you're like going, oh yeah, I'm killing it. I'm murdering. And yeah,
It's like even when you watch a Netflix or a recorded special, if you watch it by yourself, you might think it's funny, but you probably don't laugh out loud a lot. You watch that same special in a room of 6 people, all of a sudden you're all laughing out loud because laughter in itself is a social activity, right? It's showing you that I get the joke. It's a little bit of there's some weird subconscious shit happening there, you know. So for audiences as well, Zoom is rubbish because you can't hear the other people laughing.
yeah, no, I hear you. I hear you. Like, so I have to ask, like, how are you getting your reps in, like, basically right now through this sort of never-ending lockdown? Never-ending
Yeah.
lockdown.
Yeah, it's a good question, man. So there's a couple of things that I did. To begin with, I was a dumb enough person to think this wasn't going to last that long. So I had
You and 75 other million people in this country.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah. So I was kind of lucky enough that I had recorded the Edinburgh Fringe show that I'd done the year before. And so I put the first couple months just into getting that all ready to publish and publishing and promoting that. And it's not the same as getting your reps in. It's not the same as performing new material, but it was slightly different, and it forced me to listen back to my material in a way that I probably haven't as intensely. And that's an interesting experience. And that was May. And then I think I did Zoom gigs for a bit, and I kind of decided they weren't for me. And
yeah,
so that's when I started the podcast. Because it's not the same at all, but at least, so there's two things about it. One is at least it's a live interactive conversation. I can try and flex my improv muscles a lot more, which is a very different thing, but it's still something. It's still like creating, it's still trying to, and you know, I'll try and write a couple jokes into every episode, but it's a very different thing to stand up. But the other thing, and who knows if this works or not, we'll find out soon. But the other thing is, because my show changes topic weekly, at least it makes me think about things in what do I think is funny about this particular topic, right?
yeah.
And what I'm hoping is that when I can get back on stage, I go, oh, that joke I said on that podcast was kind of funny. Okay, now let's write 10 jokes on that topic. Bang, do they work, don't they? And I've kind of got this backlog of ammunition that I can throw to the wolves and not have to be like, oh, this is the one joke I wrote down in lockdowns, I have to make it work. No, just like, did this work? No, okay, let's get the next one out there and just really rapid fire it.
Yeah, no, this is the thing. Like it kind of has a sort of Tim Dillon vibe to that sort of like aspect you're talking about. Because right now, if you're talking comedy, look, Joe Rogan, like he's like, I don't see him as a comedy podcast, if you get what I mean. It's something completely different. But if you kind of Tim Dillon, Andrew Schultz with like Fragrant 2, Brilliant Idiots, like they are kind of like what I mean, sort of really hitting that comedy riff at this. Like Bill Burr, like I don't like he's a crazy man just speaking on the mic, just like still But yeah, I think definitely.
I think Bill Burr is a really interesting one, right? Because if you listen to his podcast, it is, if you are a comedy enthusiast, it is such a great look behind the curtain of how much of comedy is rubbish until you figure out what's funny, right? because he quite literally often just rambles for a moment, like for a long time. And sometimes listening to the podcast, you can't tell where the joke even was supposed to be or where it will be, right?
Yeah.
And then you hear his special and he's talking about the same thing, but all of a sudden there are great jokes in there. And it is that whatever fart of an idea has been marinated over time into something that was, really, really polished and good, but it started rubbish.
Yeah, no, but that sort of ties in very much into the reps and helping to refine it, because look, like, and this is what people still don't get. You get like the idea, and like, if I imagine if I went to a comedy club on a regular basis, I would see a million and one sort of things, and I'm like going, I might go, yeah, that was funny. And then a year later, when it has been truly refined, it's like, oh, good God. Why is my side hurting? Why am I in so much pain? Leave me alone. Yeah. Stop it. And like, you just like, oh, okay. So I'm sort of getting familiar with the sort of steps what go behind it. But yeah, because there's one thing what Stan, like when I was doing a little bit of research with you, like you fell for a trick, a big trick. Do you remember where it was?
Is this the doomsday dating story? Is that the one?
Well, like basically, like look, like which celebrities would you be able to sleep with?
Oh, that trick, yeah. The guilt-free 3. Oh man. Do you know what's really funny about that? Is it's a great example of how hard you have to work to make it look like you're just telling that for the first time, because that ex-girlfriend who I've now broken up with, but before we broke up, we had a huge fight because I'd been telling that joke for so long that I believed it had happened, but she reminded me that happened to a friend, and I thought that's really funny. And so I told the joke on stage for so long, and I made it feel so real that in my head it had happened to me.
Bloody toadfish! You're gonna pay. Just like lots of neighbors driving along. There's like, yeah.
I do find those games are so funny that how bored in your relationship do you have to be like, who could we, like
well, look, I won't lie, there are certain actors which I know my lady would walk over a lake of fire to get to. That's like going, look, like Jason Momoa, I would have to put a protective detail around him. And like Benedict Cumberbatch, yeah, those two guys, oh my Lord. Damn right. Fucking
super sensitive hearing over the top of Bridgerton.
Yeah, she listens to all.
No context needed, exactly, just that. Do you know what is brilliant about that? And it's so funny to me how absolutely opposite those two individuals are.
Yeah.
Like, you can't figure out the type. There's quite literally, you couldn't pick two more opposite.
All I've got to say is one guy chiseled out of stone, another guy who is very handsome but can't say penguin to save his life. It's like a penguin. It's
also, one has like the aura of like a willed, like just a beastly, just like, and then the other one looks like he would break if you sneezed near him.
Yeah, just with a menacing voice. It's like, don't hurt me. No. But like, yeah, like it's like you look at Jason Momoa and you're like, yeah. There are two things I know about Jason Momoa in my heart. Not like, look, One, like, yes, if you caught your lady like, yeah, I did. You kind of like go, okay, yeah, I get it. And I think the second one is if you got a hug from him, you're going, I don't know why, but I feel safe in your arms.
100%, 100%. He's like, it's one of those things, right? Like, it doesn't matter how much around your friends you're like, yeah, I want to be the alpha. I want to be the alpha. Jason Momoa is in the room. Nobody's playing.
Yeah, that's like, son of a yeah, you handsome bastard, you. You handsome, charming son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Want to punch you in your beautiful face.
I would if I wasn't so scared.
Yeah. It's like, okay, it's okay. like, but you understand what I have to live with now.
100%.
Oh, lost my train of thought. Yeah, I'll get back on track.
You got heckled during your own podcast in your own home. That is brutal.
Yeah, you see, like I'm not too sure how much counseling I'm going to need from this one, but I shall get my revenge in this life or the next. But we shall see. I don't think you expected that to happen on this podcast.
I mean, I told you I was up for anything.
Oh, nice. So with regards to you starting your podcast and like going through it, you're changing your topics each and every week. What has been one of the sort of more interesting topics you may have covered?
Dude, it's cool that you asked this today. So there is a Mars landing with NASA happening right now. Like right now, as we speak.
Yeah, the rover.
Yeah, the rover's landing. So I got to be honest, I was not a space guy, right? Like I was a space kid, but as an adult, I was like, yeah, they're there, they're pretty. I didn't think about them. But I spoke to an astronomer and asked her about the main Mars missions, but eventually we started talking about like the Big Bang and the fact that, like, you know, astronomers now with the telescopes can see the Big Bang because of the way that light travels, because light travel takes so long to get to us, and then their telescopes are looking far enough out that they can see kind of the first signs of light that ever existed now, which is mind-blowing. And then she started explaining like dark matter and dark energy and the way that there are these things that we know they have to exist, right? Because if they didn't exist, everything would pull apart rapidly and nothing could exist. So we know they're there, but we have no idea what they are, how they work. They don't respond to any of our testing methods, but they just exist and they need to exist. And it's like, when you start thinking about it in that level of detail, it's like, man, this is some absolute mind-blowing stuff, you know? And it's the sort of stuff that you'd never think about on a day-to-day, because you've got to go have breakfast and you've got to go to work and you don't have time to be like, what holds the universe together? You just take for granted that it does.
Yeah, you know what? You do too much of that thinking. You're like, one day you'll be eating some cereal and you'll stop and you're like, that's like, not too sure.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Oh, 100%. But it was super fun to be able to experiment with that kind of conversation again without being stoned as well, because that's stoner chat, right? Like, what holds the universe together? Well, no, I'm talking to a scientist about this shit. Like, it was cool.
If she was in the room, like, look, man, look, it's tote pass.
Oh, 100%. It was, so that's one. And then the other one that really blew my mind was speaking to a neuroscientist about the way memory works. And there was one fact that really got me, which was that there are some people, I didn't know this existed, but it explains a lot, right? There are some people who, in their memory, when they watch them back, they are not the person causing it. So it's just like they're watching a movie. They're not in the memory, right? And so, you know, that friend you've got who always goes for the wrong kind of girl and then brings you up crying, like, why did it happen again? And it's like, oh, you don't learn from your memories because you're not in them.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Nah. Yeah, they need someone else to play it out so they see that stuff going on. So like, you remember that time when you messed up with that girl? It's like, yes. That's like, we have to do this every time to help you learn. It's like, yeah. Or yeah, or like, yeah, that friend, that special friend, which you're like, yeah, he's an arsehole, but he's our arsehole, and you've got to basically take care of them. And it wasn't my fault. I never did that. It's like, there's always someone else. But yeah.
Oh, dude, yeah, we've exactly. We've all got that friend. There, every time we get into trouble, like nobody needs to ask. They go, Dylan, isn't it? It's always Dylan, right? It's just always them.
Yeah. Well, like I'm sure one of the memories you'll definitely hold strong with you in your life is, prepping for.
Yeah. So that is a story that is very real and very ridiculous, right? It is stupid how much of that story is word for word true, right? Like she said it was a surprise date. She made it sound like it was some big romantic thing. I'm like, yeah, we're getting lucky. Come on.
Okay.
Drive 3 hours out of town, get to the middle of nowhere. There is this fucking, I can't stress enough how tiny this little hut shack thing is that she's been using to prepare for the end of the world, and filled with baseball bats and knives, because obviously she thought she had to defend herself from some shit, and canned food from Aldi.
Oh, it's like wait. Okay, so when she took you out to her cabin, her doomsday cabin with the knives and baseball bats and everything like this, and like did she think there was an event going to happen there and then, and that's why she took you?
Yeah. She thought we were gonna spend the night. Like she thought we were fucking in the hut. Okay. Oh, so she didn't think there was a doomsday event. Sorry, I misunderstood.
Oh, yeah.
No. She didn't think that it was a doomsday event. It was her sharing a special secret of hers with me. It wasn't a getaway. It was like, hey, I trust you enough to show you how batshit crazy I am, essentially. And in her head, we were going to go out there. I was going to see it. I was going to be like, oh, wow, of course this is what you do, because I don't know why, like tapped behavior. And then she thought we would stay the night and fucking leave in the morning.
Right. It's like, I'm just saying, just me. I don't know how I could sort of maybe relax in a potential murder hut in the middle of nowhere, 3 hours away from civilization. Was this
you and me both?
You and me both. Was this in Australia?
Yeah, Australia, 100%. Okay, yeah.
So basically bush, no matter where you went.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It was bush no matter where we went. It was 3 hours away from Melbourne, which is my home city back home, is, and that's the closest city you have to that area. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, no. A Melbourne lad, you must did you frequent St Kilda, is it?
Yeah, St Kilda's all right, man. Yeah, it's a nice little bit of town. It's a bit all over the place, you know, because it's near the city, it's by the beach, but it's also like had a real, like, it used to be a real rough part of town. So there's still like bits and pieces where like, oh, here's a fancy barn next to somebody shooting up heroin. Like it's a bit.
Yeah, you know what? I bet you when you were in that cabin, you looked at you that memory most really came to your head, and you thought, okay, only if I was there now.
Yeah, oh, 100%. Do you know what? As well, retelling the story, it's like if you're gonna take me to this weird ass hut on this fancy date, right? At least wine and dine me. Get a brand name canned food, right?
It's like not not surplus military supplies.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like Royal Australian Army. Okay, no.
It is one of those, again, it's one of those memories that's etched in my brain. And I distinctly remember her saying, this isn't how I pictured this going. And me, what else am I going to say? Going, how the fuck did you think this was going to go? Like,
you bring me out to your survival murder cabin in the middle of the bush with your baseball and knives on the wall, and you treat me to a lovely canned meal. Yeah, with the allure of lust in your eye.
Yeah.
And yes, and you look back in my eyes and you see nothing but terror.
Exactly. Oh man, it is. Some people just don't get it, dude. Like, just do you know what is interesting as well? Is so telling that story on stage, you'd be surprised how many people go, I don't know what your big deal is. I don't know what your big deal is. Why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you just fuck her in the hut?
No, you know what? Those are the people you watch very carefully and you hope to get on the list.
Yeah.
That's like security. Yeah. Are you seeing this? That one over there? Like, it's like,
yeah.
That's the one.
Do you know what is interesting? I haven't done, obviously, because stages have been illegal for 12 months, but I haven't done that joke since lockdown. And I imagine the amount of people who are on her side has increased in this last year because people have lost their minds.
It's like, yeah, I think that joke might be the, it's like,
yeah.
But, so you were locked in a cabin for a restrictive amount of time with one other person. Yeah, I can get with that. That's like
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, or even just people being like, oh, so this person thought a disaster event was going to happen and she needed to be able to be self-sustainable for a year.
You know what? If you kind of look at it like that, with lockdown, all of this, like you're like, that is one prepared lady, and you like she's making some guy out there right now, a very happy person, while they're locked away from like thousands, like hundreds of miles away from people anywhere.
100%. Like, I made the right decision. She's crazy. There is no way you can stay with that person. But also, there was a week in the sort of end of March where I felt exactly the way I did when I was 14, and I dumped Jessica, and then the next day it was 40 degrees and she had a pool at her house, and I was like, fuck, I could have used that pool though.
It's like, hey, yeah, hey, can I come? Okay. Yeah, it's hot out here. It's like, now, got to ask. Now, what is the film of comedy for you? What is that thing which you can like, oh yeah, that hit?
Oh, that's a good question. I haven't thought about this in a long time. You know, it changes all the time. I think for pure stand-up, I really liked Chris Rock's last one, the tambourine. Yeah, I think for pure stand-up, because I've always liked Chris Rock. I think he's a hilarious dude. But you've seen heard what I do. I like a bit of personal storytelling in there. And for me, Chris, up until this last one, had never done that. It was always commentary. And this, the jokes are just as good. The performance is just as good. but you get a bit of Chris in there as well, which I really liked. I think it was that, or the Chappelle a couple specials ago, the what's it called, the award winner one, and it's the one where 90% of the time he's on stage smoking a cigarette, and he's comparing the struggle of feminism with the civil rights movement. And I think, when that man's on, it's a different level.
Like, because like I remember when they did the review for that, I think it was that special. Basically, it was given to a very small pool of reviewers, which basically marked it down to 0. And then, then basically the rest of the reviewers, which finally came on, it was like, what on earth are you talking about? I was like, then it went immediately to 95. I think it was, I can't remember the name of that Chappelle comedy special, but like this is the thing when it comes to sort of comedy specials, like the thing what sort of ignited my sort of like awakening into the realm of comedy, like 2, it was Eddie Murphy Delirious and Robin Williams Carnegie Hall. I mean, like, they're God in heaven. Like,
that Robin Williams one definitely stacks up as well, actually, now that I mention it. It's been too long, but dude, it is a great, it's one of those things where a really good special is such a gift, because you wait for your friends to see it, and then you tell each other the jokes back, and then you find the ones that you both are like, yeah, that's the joke, and years later you see your mates and you can still say that joke, and you're both just like you've heard it again for the first time. It's so cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Oh God, such a joy, such a joy. Now, okay, let's see. Okay, now I have a sort of a question slash how can I put? I'd like to see what your answer would be to this question. Now, think of every movie you've seen and like pick out the best movie or anything like this. Which movie would you have like one actor, one human actor, and the rest of the cast are Muppets? Which film?
The Matrix for sure. The Matrix for sure. And you keep Keanu Reeves and everybody else is a Muppet. Just him bullet time, whoa, and then Kermit like, whoa.
Agent Smith, Kermit the Frog.
Yeah. That. I'm tempted to go real, like, people are going to be mad at me for this, but like, or Dallas Buyers Club.
Oh God, no. Oh, you're a sick man. No, but now I'm gonna have to ask, who would you keep as the human and replace? Would you have McConaughey there, or would you have McConaughey as a Muppet?
I'd say Leto's the human. In for a penny, in for a pound.
There's a special circle in hell for you. There you go. Oh. You're a troubling fella. Okay, I like it. Okay. Yeah. You're just sitting there like, should I have said that? It's like, it's too late now. It's too late now.
Do you know, it's one of those ones, right? That's the kind of thing you can say with your mates or with comics backstage, because they know that you're just trying to say the thing that will get the biggest reaction.
Yeah.
But because I've been in lock, because we've all been in lockdown for a year, and you don't get to see other people's reactions,
Yeah.
you forget that there's some things that are just for.
You're like, he's awakened it again in me. It's like I could just see you Zoom calling 10 different people after this. Hey, how you doing? It's like, oh dear. Yeah, like I have to ask, like there with like sort of a divergence away from that, like there has been this sort of social media like wave for social club. I think social club or new web app which is out there.
Oh, Clubhouse.
Clubhouse. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you been on it? Because like I haven't personally, because I'm an independent Android user.
Yeah, me too. It's the same, man. And to be honest, they picked a good name for the thing because it does feel like you're out of the club, right? Everyone's like, "Hey, have you been on Clubhouse? It's so fun." I'm like, I'm not allowed in.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just basically wanted to see what your take was on it, because I've had a conversation with one other person. They kind of went, yeah, they've managed to like speak or being connected with other people. I was just seeing if you, because you're in the realm of like your sort of day job is like social media, isn't it?
Yeah. Because I do business to business, like really niche stuff. Upcoming social isn't required. Otherwise, I would have to, like, I'd have to get my work to get me an Apple if I was working with,
Yeah.
But yeah, it sounds cool. I am at an age now though, like even like when TikTok started, now it's Clubhouse. I'm at an age now where I'm like, I don't need to learn another. I understand my parents struggle. I'm like, I don't want to learn another. I've just learned this. Why are you making me learn? So I am a bit like that, but I do hope they let me in at some point. I'd like to at least have a go at making it work.
Yeah, like yeah, I'm curious. Like this is the thing. There's been a couple of times where I might have to get myself like an Apple phone, like an iPhone somehow at some point, because like nature of the beast and all that.
I do think on that the people who are behind Clubhouse have recently hired Android developers, so I don't think it will be too long until they port it over. So you may be able to save yourself a couple £100.
Yes, yeah. Fingers crossed. It's like yeah, we shall see. We shall see.
Depends how long you can hold out for,
I can hold out for a week or two. I'm not missing out. Oh God. Now I have to reveal I am a being of supreme cosmic power, and I have the ability to grant you one wish. Before you say anything, you can't have world peace. You can't like write down a number of things on a list and go, yes, I wish everything on this list come true. Yeah, and yes, and like basically wishing for lockdown to be over is kind of world peace as well. So you can't have.
Okay.
So
I want the ability to teleport.
teleport. I see. So
Yeah.
what would you teleport?
So I love travel. It's one of the reasons London was so appealing, right? Because of the connections to Europe and stuff like that. And so since lockdown, my company's got rid of the office, so I can work remotely wherever I want. So I would save so much time and money just being like, bam, now I'm in Barbados. Bam, now I'm in Cancun. Oh, what? You want me to go to Glastonbury and then be at your wedding? No worries. Bam, bam, Yeah, just to never ever have to line up in an airport again. Oh, airport security with the bloody power hungry people who are with your trays and stuff. Oh, never again. The best.
Excellent. Power of teleportation. Okay, yeah, you know what? I'll grant that, but you can't use it for nefarious like reasons. Yeah.
I won't be porting in and out of banks. Although, now that you mention it, I can't believe I just went on this whole freaking rant about traveling. I could be in it.
Look, man, you spoke your heart there, but now you're like, now you're thinking, oh yes, I can use this.
You've already granted it, my man. You can't be telling me what I can do with it now.
I said I'd give it to you, but you can't use it for nefarious purposes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got this locked down. I've got this locked down.
You do. You're a step ahead.
What can I say? Always thinking. Unagi. Yeah. Can you tell the lovely people out there how they can get hold of you? Where they can?
Yeah, 100%. So my name, Anthony Jeannot. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Insta. If you want to listen to my stand-up album, that's on Spotify and Apple Music and all of those sort of stuff. So Anthony Jeannot, stand-up comedy album. I made it easy for people because, don't want to lose any listeners by getting them confused with the name of the album. So that's there. And then every week I got a new podcast out on Highbrow Drivel. So they're the places. Take your pick.
Absolutely. I will put all of those details in the show notes. So everyone will have the deets and be able to get to you, sir. But yeah, I want to say, Anthony, it has been a pleasure having you on today. You have been a superstar. Yes.
It's been so fun chatting with you. And briefly, your wife.
Well, she's working on that. One day she'll she'll call me and just say, yes. Shotgun in one hand.
A selection of rings in the other.
Just it's today. Okay, yeah, no worries. Okay, yeah, okay, baby, put down the gun. Put it down. It's like, no, until I get you shackled. Okay, no. Love it. On that happy note, well, I'd say to you, my friends, my life warriors, please stay safe, stay well, be awesome, be excellent, be fantastic, be all the positive bees you can be in this world and then some. Have a great day, guys. Yeah. Peace. We're